Let me introduce the candidates now, that's why we're here, right? Okay, thank you. Let's start here in seat number 1. We have David McInnes. And we have in seat number 2, we have Kevin Burns. In seat number 3, Matt Bell. In seat number 4, Ryan Arbon. And seat number 5, Troy Aerosmith. So, shall we get started? We'll start with candidate number 1, David McInnes. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This is obviously very significant, very important. Want to make sure I appreciate it. What this room represents is that people care. What this panel represents is that people care. I just want to start out with that. First and foremost, I'm David McInnes. I'm running for the position of Weber County Sheriff. My platform is simple, but remember, simple doesn't mean easy. First, I want to provide a safe place for our citizens in Weber County to live, play, raise a family. Children should be safe at school, citizens should be safe in their homes, and our property should be secure as well. We share common values and we have common expectations. Let's get real. The Weber County Sheriff's Office needs leadership. The Weber County Sheriff's Office needs change. I am the leader that this organization needs. I am the right man for the job.
Good evening. I'm Kevin Burns, and I'm running for the office of Weber County Sheriff.
I agree with Dave McInnes. The Sheriff's Office does need new leadership. And there is no one in this room that currently has an example of why that leadership is needed more at this time than this guy. So I would like to talk to you more about it, provide you an opportunity to learn why I'm the right leader for this position. Thank you.
Thanks for coming out. I appreciate the delegates doing your due diligence, and this has been a great opportunity. I ran for sheriff because there needs to be someone that's qualified to be sheriff. There's someone that needs to know how to take care of the jail. You just heard the numbers and all those millions of dollars there. If we're going to find money to pay our deputies more and to relieve the taxpayers, we're going to do that through the jail and those inmates that are in there, because that is by far our biggest budget in there. I've got the experience that we need for dealing with budgets. I've dealt with multi-million-dollar budgets. We're gonna have $36 million worth of budgets there. It's gonna be my goal that we are gonna get these inmates, and we need to get them outside of the jail so they can come back in with our families. We're gonna work on them, we're gonna train them, we're gonna teach them, and I'm Matthew Bell, and I'm prepared and ready to be your next sheriff.
Good evening, I'm Ryan Arbon. I'm also a candidate for the Weber County Sheriff. I echo a lot of these things that have been set up here. My platform primarily is attitude and accountability. Instead of telling you things that you already know about me, but there's some things you don't know about me, because I have a vast background in small business. I too have been involved in multi-million-dollar budgets. The advantage I have as a small business owner, leader, and manager is you find good creative ways to save money. And when you do that, you use it and hold them accountable, and with that you have great results. And thank you again for coming out tonight.
My name's Troy Aerosmith. I'm running for Weber County Sheriff, and I just want to thank all of you for coming out here. I'm getting all used to this whole doing delegate stuff. I do believe with my two over here that this needs new leadership, and I'm that guy for that job. Been in the military for 26 years. Been over in Afghanistan leading troops out there. I led troops here as a sergeant, run the gang task force. What needs to happen is to take care of the people, inside and outside the jail, in the sheriff's office. It's all about people and talking to people and getting your word out and actually listening to other people.
That's the problem with everybody else. Everybody thinks they get the great idea. But some of you probably got some great ideas too. No one wants to listen. Just like in the jail. Just like out on the streets, the sheriff's deputies. I will bring those people together along with you and lead us to where we need to go. Again, I'm Troy Earl Smith, go running for Weber County Sheriff.
Thank you, gentlemen. Turn off the phones, please. Before we get started then, I did want to remind the delegates a famous quote from a good American, Thomas Edison. And Thomas Edison said, "Vision without execution is hallucination." And so I would remind our delegates that what we're looking for here are folks that can actually execute on the things they talk about. And that's just my advice. But again, thank you for being here. I'm a little intimidated now, but is it okay, Linda, if I open the first envelope? All right. So the first envelope is for David, who drew number 1, and I will open the envelope and read. You will have 2 minutes to respond, and then each candidate will have 1 minute to respond as well. Okay, if elected, what will you do to recruit and retain qualified deputies and keep them from moving on to higher paying police agencies? David?
Feel like the Oscars. Envelope, please. If elected, what do I do to recruit and retain qualified deputies? One of the things that we've continually heard about is that there's an issue with pay. There's compression issues. There's things like that. And let's be honest, we need to take care of that pay. We need to take care of the compression issue. But one thing that hasn't been talked about is value. How do we create value that's not monetary? How do we get guys who want to come to work and give us everything they got when maybe the pay just isn't quite as much? That's what I do fantastic. I have a track record of bringing people together and creating a team mentality. Let me tell you how you do it. One of the first ways you create value is you can't tell people you care about them. You have to show them that you care about them. And what I mean by that is you are the face of the organization. You have to be in every aspect of what's going on. You can't let things happen without your knowledge. You have to be invested. But you have to be invested from the standpoint of a beneficial investment, not looking for what's wrong, but to reward what's right. Once you start to create that, you create peer leadership. You create an internal, you start to raise expectation because people want to perform for each other. That's how you create a team. That's how, when you talk about retention, number 1, pay. I get that. Give me a competitive wage, I'll do the rest. I will make people feel valued. I will create that value. And that's one thing that a lot of people aren't talking about. They just want to talk about money. Money, money, money. But there's got to be a reason why people throw that vest on, put that belt on, and come to work on a daily basis. It's because they feel valued. They want to be something, a part of something greater than themselves. Give me the opportunity, I'll create that value. Thank you.
Right, I've had an opportunity to talk to many of you about this particular subject as we met at the Meet the Candidate events. And the money is one piece of this puzzle. We've talked about that. But I've talked about the importance of officers and people feeling that internal warm fuzzy they get from doing police work. And that reward that they got into police work to perform. Everybody got into police work to do good things for the community. They want to perform well, they want to protect, they want to serve. And there's a point where that stops occurring and they get kind of bogged down in some of the muck that is law enforcement. I think as leaders, we need to work to put them in environments and provide opportunities for them to get back to that good feeling that they got into police work to help people and do good things in their community. And we have opportunities to do that with our officers and give them those feelings that they're looking for. Thank you.
So one of the first things we need to do is, yes, we need to work on morale in the sheriff's office. But let's talk about it. We haven't got to address, they want more money. That's what it's about, more money. We can fix these other problems, and we will. Money, how are we gonna do it? Let's talk about it. First of all is we have got $1 million worth of vehicles we buy a year. We spend $1 million a year. We may have to make a change on some of the things that we do there on the vehicles and look at some different things. We may need to look at incentive bonuses for longevity. Why do you say longevity bonuses? They can be a good thing. It's a cash bonus, plus we don't have to pay the 29 to 39% retirement on that, because in public safety, you don't get retirement on your overtime or on your bonuses. It's the way the state legislature set that up. That's another thing that we can do to do that, and I'm running out of time fast. The next thing that we can do is that as we need to look at our benefits, and we need to look at them and see where we can change them and make them to favor the employee more. So as you're, stop. Thank you.
Errol Smith said I could take his minutes. So let me explain a proven method that I'm doing right now up in Perry City. I understand it's a small city, but what we did is we come up with a proven method that works. And what it is, it boils down to a couple of things. First of all, it's attitude and accountability. I mentioned that earlier. The other thing is what we want to do is give them the autonomy to do the job that they want to do. Each officer is special in this, they're all over the state. If you can find their niche and help them achieve it, that's what you want. And then when they do a good job, you reward them. You reward them appropriately. We all know that's very important. We want our people to come to work. As a leader, as the sheriff, what I want to do is I also have a responsibility to clear the way for them so they can do their job. And if you can do that, reward them appropriately, give them the autonomy and purpose, raise the expectations. I know I got a few seconds. I'm going to take his minute, okay? But when you do that, that is a perfect recipe for success, and it's working right now. We do not have a turnover rate in Perry City.
I know I've talked about this many times before, but the bottom line is they need a little bit more money. They raised the bottom wage to make it look like they were gonna get a little bit more for the people starting. The people at the top got all their money, right? The guys in the middle were kinda left out, they got a little pittance. So the 8-year officers make as much as the 1-year officer. The bottom line is you gotta go in there and do it. Financial forensic audit the entire place. Find out where all that money's going. And then you gotta set committees in each one of those departments from the lowest guy to the highest guy, giving them buy-in. So they gotta say in what's going on in the department. And because sometimes that lowest guy's got the best idea. What's gonna happen? So they're the guy boots on the ground. They can make changes, those slight changes, it's gonna save you money. And when you save that money, you bring that back around and give it to those guys in the middle that didn't get any. Or didn't get enough. They deserve it. Bring their wages up, and then you bring up value. And you also bring up their wages at the same time. Because why? Because they had a say in what's gonna happen in that department. And they knew somebody else was listening. The guys at the top ain't always guys with the right answer. I'm Troy Earl Smith, running for county sheriff.
Thank you, gentlemen. Oh, yeah. We'll move to the second soft debate question for Kevin Burns. Will be the first one to respond, first candidate to respond. And that question is, what is the difference between a sheriff's office and a police department? Between a sheriff and a chief of police?
Yeah, I was asked this question a lot when I was a young officer working in the schools. What's the difference between the sheriff and what's the difference between the sheriff's office and a police department? Tell them the way you spell it. But the sheriff's office is just so much more. You know, the sheriff is responsible for the jail. That's a big operation. Sheriff has civil service responsibilities, civil papers, those types of things to deal with, and then law enforcement. And our law enforcement is it's much like city law enforcement. We have 8 contract cities, but we provide law enforcement in unincorporated areas, and from the mountains all the way out west to the lake. We also have search and rescue responsibilities. That's the sheriff's office responsibility. And wildland fires, we don't deal very much with those. We've got a good fire department for that. That's the police departments. That's a municipal function provided by cities. We provide that service to our contract cities the same as the local city provide to the police departments provide to their city. So that's about it. Thank you.
I have a different take on it. The sheriff is the only constitutional elected person in the United States of America. There is nobody in Weber County, in any county, that has more authority than the sheriff, period. It's a constitutional office. The difference between a sheriff and a chief of police is appointed by somebody. He's appointed to do his job. The sheriff is elected. We are accountable to only you. We are not accountable to another body. We are not accountable to anything else. I agree with everything else he says that we do, but we are the law enforcement in Weber County, and it does not go beyond there. So it is the top law enforcement constitutionally in the whole United States of America.
I'd like to thank Matt and Kevin for giving my answers, but I'm going to add to it. I see the sheriff as the line between the federal government and your rights. As the sheriff, I have a responsibility to make sure that no one takes your guns away. I have the authority and the right to make sure that the federal government doesn't come down here and take your property. That's the line I saw, or the difference I see in large part is the sheriff. And as sheriff, I make sure that we will protect your liberties and your privileges and your rights and your right to bear arms.
I don't know how many more ways you can put it than that, okay? Because everybody believes in their civil liberties, believes in the Constitution, and the sheriff is there to protect those constitutional rights. And that's all you need to do. That and do what the people want, because you elected that sheriff. He works for you. He's there to protect you, your property, and your constitutional rights. And that's all you need to know. Thank you.
The sheriff is a sovereign institution. It's voted for by the people, to represent the people, to enforce the laws. You've already heard it. It is the highest level of law enforcement in the county, and the sheriff owns the county. They allow what to happen with other agencies, federal and otherwise. The question you have to ask yourself is, which sheriff will defend your rights? Who's going to do it for you? Who's going to be the decision maker? Who's going to be the one that's going to take care of you? Because it's all ideas until it's time to make a decision. I'll tell you right now, I'm the guy that'll take care of it. You're going to hear me say that frequently tonight, but I believe it in every fiber of my being. We're going to be better when I'm sheriff of this county. Thanks.
Wow, do we have a good group of candidates. Okay, we'll move on to question number 3, self-question, debate question out of the envelope. And Matt Bell, lucky number 3, will read or respond first. And the question is, how have you prepared yourself to serve Weber County as the sheriff? Please describe your experience with 1, managing multi-million-dollar budgets, and 2, managing an organization with hundreds of employees and volunteers.
Okay, first on budgets. We have about $180 million of budgets in Weber County. I was also, and don't hold it against me, on the UTA board, and we had about $350 million budget there. So I have budgeted and then dealt with over $500 million in budgets. Second on employees, Weber County has close to 800 employees and volunteers. When I was with the county, we had about 1,100 or 1,300 employees and lots of volunteers with the county, so I have experience there. The other thing, I was chairman of the Republican Party for a lot of years, and we have 50,000 Republicans in Weber County as of now. Not that I dealt with every one of them, but we had to put these conventions and all those things on, and I did that for many years. So I've got the experience that dealing with budgets, and I've dealt with a lot of them, and I've got experience with employees. Employees are our most important asset. I'll throw some figures out later on tonight about, we got a $36 million budget. They've updated the new figures. Mine was a year ago. Over 30 million of it is employee cost in Weaver County. Employee cost in Weaver County. So that's where we're at on budgets and on employees. So I think it's very important that we know what we're doing there. Thank you.
I too have experience with these kind of budgets and working with individuals, volunteers. I told you earlier that I had a vast experience in small business. And one of the small business I did about 12 years ago, some partners and I decided to get into developing. And before that, obviously it crashed, but we were dealing anywhere from 5 to 120 acres. We dealt with contractors and builders and excavators and all engineers and all sorts of stuff. And I was one of the primary members that managed those projects. And what was the other question? The second one?
It's right there, should be right here. Gotcha.
Okay, so within those capacities, that's what we manage. I also had the ability to recently, I was able to manage a volunteer peach orchard that served lots of people in the community, that had several hundred people that were involved in the process, from the pruning to the picking, all the way through to the end of the harvest. Thank you.
Well, my name's Charles again. I'm not here. My financial budget stuff that I handled was mostly from the military side of the house. I had to run a provincial reconstruction team where I brought Air Force guys in, National Guard guys, regular Army guys, Army Reserves, and brought them all to work as a team. We went and trained for 8 weeks. All that equipment is very expensive. We're talking about millions of dollars. You're talking about over 200 people. Had to bring them together, work as a team. And then we had to go from there over to Afghanistan, take that equipment with us, and then follow another equipment out there. Each one of the trucks we had, we had over 10 trucks. Each one of those trucks we drove around was over 350 grand. You had to manage where those go. I had guys out in other places. I had to manage those to make sure that they all came back with all that equipment. There's a lot of money floating around with all that stuff. And then I also had to do my own job as CS Civil Affairs, and then come back and do the same job as the First Army can. And manage all those people, manage all that equipment, find out where it's at, and then turn it in at the end. And then all the families as well. I had to have volunteers back there to take care of everybody's families and contact them. Thank you.
It's an interesting question, budgets. I graduated from high school, I know how to add and subtract. Budgets, I'm not trying to minimize it, but what budgets are is budgets are priorities. That's what we're talking about. Making a decision about what a priority is, and that needs to be reflected in your budget. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. As far as managing multi-million-dollar budgets, I haven't had that opportunity. But like I said, I have a vision of what I want to do with the sheriff's office, and the people that I will bring in have. It's the idea of good leadership, having a vision and bringing, when you find a gap in what you do, bringing people in to help you with that. But like I said, it's all about priorities as it relates to budgets for me. Making that decision about priorities. Managing an organization with hundreds of employees. I work at the sheriff's office. I've had lots of success with multiple different organizations, from a 3-man crew to a 20-man group, working in the academies, running the academies, all that stuff. Talk to me later about that. Thank you.
Sorry. It's age. The managing the multi-million-dollar budgets, like Mac, I don't have a lot of experience managing multi-million-dollar budgets. I have managed budgets at the sheriff's office with my 27 years there. I've been in a supervisor position since 1999 in one form or another at the sheriff's office. So I have worked with budgets. But I'm smart enough to know that it's important to have a good accountant sitting up next to me, helping me manage a budget. It's not done by one person. It's a team. It takes a team effort to manage an organization that large. When we talk about managing volunteers, I've spent 14 years working with a local nonprofit organization, and we manage volunteers. We organize the Ogden Marathon each year. It's about 1,100 volunteers that we put together to make that event work. That's my experience. I've got a lot of success in those types of things, and thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll now move to swap debate question number 4. And the first candidate to respond will be Ryan, I believe. And the question is, why do you want to be Weber County's next sheriff? How much do you know about responsibilities of Weber County Sheriff and the Sheriff's Office? What are the constitutional or statutory obligations of a Utah County Sheriff? And Ryan?
I thought that was one question.
It's a paragraph. Hey, I'm just the moderator.
All right, so I think most of us have already answered what the constitutional and statutory obligations are as the sheriff. And what I do know about the responsibilities of the sheriff is I started out there. I was a bailiff for just a few months, and then I left and went back east to school and was a marshal there for the state of Missouri. But the responsibility that I see is to pertain why I want to become the sheriff. So several months ago, someone asked me if I would consider running for to be the sheriff. And at the time I wasn't interested, and I asked, why do you want me to do it? They said, we like what you did in Perry City. And I said, well, yeah, but that's a big department compared to Perry City. And though that is true, but when you're dealing with people, I know all of us have great plans and ideas, but to me, it's about the people. It's about the employees. So can I have, by a show of hands, how many people work for Weber County Sheriff's or has a spouse or a relative with the Sheriff's Office? So there's quite a few of you. I want to tell you first and foremost that my interest is you. I care more about you and your family and to making sure that you have the autonomy and purpose and the goals that you desire to be in the Sheriff's Office. I believe that my niche or the thing that's going to help me be a sheriff is about being a leader. If you give those core principles and support them, that is what's going to make the Sheriff's Office excel. I agree there needs to be change in the Sheriff's Office. It's got to be right change. It's got to be someone who's not just invested in just things for themselves or do it to enrich themselves. This has got to be about the people that are going to serve you, the residents, because that's what really matters. There is a lot of good people in the Sheriff's Department. I want to make sure that they have, and I can find the best for them. I want to put a ladder on my back and help them climb to the top, even if it means over me. Thank you.
The reason why I wanted to become the next Weber County Sheriff is because I want change. I want to change in Weber County. I want to help the people at the Sheriff's Department or Sheriff's Office. I want to help the people of Weber County. It's not for me. I don't really care. Okay? I'm not doing it for the money. I don't even know how much the sheriff makes. Never asked. Okay? The bottom line is this: you need leadership to make anything happen. You got to listen to the people. You got to open that communication line with everybody. Volunteers. It doesn't matter. You got to bring people together and work as a team. And if you do that, you'll get everybody to stay there. You got to give buy-in to the people that work there. Period. If you give buy-in and people feel like they got to say, how many people here had jobs that didn't have value? Nobody cared. You just said, go do this, and that's all you did, just nug it out. You didn't stay there very long. You went somewhere else. That's how they feel now. And I'm here to change that.
The reason I want to be the Weber County Sheriff, first and foremost, this isn't an idea that just hit me. This isn't something that just came to me in the last 6 months or year. This is something that I've worked for my career, to put myself in this position, to run for this. The reason I want to do it is, honestly, I believe with every fiber of my core that I'm the right person for the job. When this opportunity presented itself, I looked at what the sheriff's office needed. I said to me personally, what is it that we're lacking? What do we need? I did a self-evaluation and said, what can I bring? And it meshes. That's the number one reason. This is for not me. This is for the people. This is for the citizens of the county. This is for the employees of the county. That's just the way I look at it. I'm willing, as I've said this before, and you guys have told me, I'm willing to give you everything I have for the betterment of this organization. This organization is in my heart, it is in my soul. So are these citizens. I choose to be here. That's why I want to serve you.
I want to be the next Weber County Sheriff because in January, when Terry Thompson announced that he was going to retire, I saw an opportunity to take my leadership style and advance the Sheriff's Office in this community. I have a record of working well with organizations outside of the Sheriff's Office, outside of government organizations, and bringing people together to make our community better. And I want to provide the leadership within the Sheriff's Office to do that. Thank you.
Well, I think I can answer both parts of that question. First of all, I'm running for the employees, I'm running for our volunteers, I'm running to make our jail a better place to get these people back in the society, and I'm running because now is the time for me. But the question was asked, what does the sheriff has to do? So let's talk about it. Constitutionally, the question was in there, we have to run a jail. We have to run civil. That means go out and collect fines and civil forfeiture. We have to be court bailiffs. We're required to do that. We're required to put out the fire in the underbrush, which thank heavens, as Kevin said earlier, we don't have to do. We have to supply law enforcement to the individual unincorporated area and the cities that want to contract with the sheriff's office. So those are things that are important to know, that constitutionally, that's the order. If you get the little the sheet that you can read about sheriff, read all the jobs that we have to do, and those are the jobs constitutionally we have to do.
Thank you, gentlemen. Debate's off question number 5. And Troy, you'll get the opportunity to have a full 2 minutes. What is the most important duty as a sheriff? What are your goals and priorities for your administration?
One of the most important duties as a sheriff is to keep everybody safe from harm, keep their lands where they're at, keep their rights, okay? But how can we do that if we don't have the bodies at the sheriff's office? So we gotta have a goal to keep bodies there. So the first goal you have to do is actually keep people in the sheriff's office. So you have to go there. You have to find out where the money's going. And I would like to do a financial forensic audit, like I said before. But I'm not gonna do that. I wanna have a third party come in and do that. If there isn't any misleading of that money, I'm not gonna be left holding back. But who is, will be punished for it. I'm hoping I don't find that. But I don't. What I'd like to find is if there's extra money out there that we don't know about. But at the same time, I wanna have those committees, talk to the people. And I would actually bring in some people from the outside as well, that have some say in how it's run. So we can have those committees and have open debate as far as how we're gonna do those things. So what are we gonna change to save that money? Everybody keeps talking about how it takes this much money to do something, it takes this much money, this is how much the jail takes. I got that, so how can we save that money? So you bring people in, they can actually help you save that money. So it ain't cost you that much. Okay, that's what you gotta do. It's all about communication with you, with the sheriff's office, any volunteers that wanna volunteer things. And a lot of times there are other places you can actually find volunteers to do that you don't have to hire somebody else to do. There's plenty of those people that want to do their civic duty. I'm here to grant that for them. But at the same time, you have to get bodies in there. You gotta give them a competitive wage. You have to make them have value. If you don't do that, it ain't gonna go anywhere. Thank you.
The most important duty of the sheriff is to defend the Constitution of the United States. That's what I believe. I've been asked frequent questions as it relates to Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Eighth Amendment, 14th Amendment, all different types of amendments, and my answer is pretty simple. When you're defending the Constitution, you can't go wrong. You just have to be willing to make those tough decisions and do it. Goals and priorities, obviously, first and foremost, is the safety of the citizens of Weber County. We need to be fiscally responsible, but as I've mentioned this before, we need to create an environment where people want to stay, not just feel like they have to. That can be done a number of different ways. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but these are things that need to be considered. The priority is retention of employees, recruitment of the best and brightest, and leadership development. Currently, we have no leadership development program in the sheriff's office. Your leadership development is when they put the stripes on your arms. That's got to stop. We need to put people in a position to succeed. We need to plan for success, not plan for failure.
The most important part of being the Weber County Sheriff is to, like we swear to, support and uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States and this state. We get that. It's important. But personally, for Weber County, one of the best ways to protect the citizens and your finances with the Weber County Sheriff's Office is to provide a safe jail. Make sure our inmates are taken care of medically, with mental health. Make sure that that's safe, because that protects us from liability when we have issues in the jail. We're performing law enforcement services. Our guys do a great job. Yes, we can use more people, and we should work harder to have qualified individuals working, but we need to protect the finances of the sheriff's office, and I believe we do that by protecting the jail and performing safely there. Thank you.
Our first job is the United States Constitution and the Constitution of Utah. Those are the first jobs that we need to protect. Next, safety and security of our residents, safety and security of our deputies. We need to make sure they're protected and our volunteers are. And as we do that, we will get better people. I agree with Mac on the training. We need to make sure that in 4 years from now, when it's time for a sheriff's race, that there's many qualified people that can come from that sheriff's office and run for sheriffs and from other areas. And so we do need to do a lot of training. As far as goals go, mental health in our jails got to happen. I want to take a couple housing units, make them mental health housing units to protect them from themselves and to protect them from other people, and start getting them the information that they need and start getting them on the medications they need as they prepare to get back in the community. I'm running out of time, so I'll be back. Thank you.
Public safety. Public safety is my top priority, and public safety should be the top priority of the commissioners of this county as well, and every government official. The other goals and priorities that I have for my administration is, earlier I talked about the investment of an employee. So the sheriff has chief deputies and he has lieutenants and sergeants to help him manage and run the operation. The key thing for one of my goals is every one of these employees in the sheriff's office has a value and they have insight. I haven't been on the road for a couple of years, and I know that I've lost a little bit of touch with it. But I do know that those that are on the road, those that are in the jail, those that are in certain positions have that knowledge, and they will contribute to make the sheriff's office a better place to work, a better place to raise your family.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move to the second part of the debate tonight, and we have some questions here that were submitted on the internet by county delegates. And in this particular case, each candidate will get 90 seconds to respond. And I'll remind the candidates, you do have 2 opportunities to have a 30-second rebuttal. If you feel you have some more comments to make, 2 opportunities through the end of the night and the rest of the night. Thank you. So next question, and we'll start in reverse order. Troy, we'll start with you, if you don't mind. And the question is, how would you protect citizens' Second Amendment rights Especially, how would you handle a federal law on gun confiscation?
I think it's pretty easy, unless they actually go and change the Second Amendment. It's not gonna happen. Period. Okay? It's the law. It's the law of the land. And that's how it's gonna stay. Thank you.
Boy. So earlier we had several questions about the priorities and the responsibilities for the sheriff. I mean, you really can't say it any better than what Errol Smith just said. I mean, any federal government that wants to come into Weber County and confiscate guns, they're gonna have problems with the Weber County Sheriff's Office. But because of the relationships that we have with the other departments around the agency, that's gonna be one hell of a wall that they're gonna have to come through to take your guns.
I agree totally with both of them.
Everybody wants to leave early. Just get it done. I'll echo what they say. You know, it's our duty to protect your rights. That is just basic stuff, and will require a constitutional change in order to affect anything there. And we have the Weber County Sheriff's Office has great working relationships with federal partners, and I just don't see any need for a big siege to take place as the federal government may try to come and seize guns. I just don't see it in the future. This is a discussion that is going to go on for years and years and years about gun rights and who's going to take my guns. It's actually a healthy conversation for us to have. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with having that conversation, but we know that we're just a long ways from anyone trying to come and take our guns. Thank you.
It is a healthy conversation. As I said before, and as many of the candidates already acknowledged, Weber County Sheriff is the highest level of law enforcement in the county. Something I mentioned previously as well is it's easy to stand in front of a bunch of delegates and say you got their back. But when the pressure of the federal government's coming down on you and they say we are going to take it, who's going to be the one that stands up and say not on my watch? That's what I've done in the United States Marine Corps, is stood and said not on my watch. That's what I've done as a Weber County deputy. I've stood and said not on my watch. I will continue to say that. No one's taken our guns.
Very encouraging, gentlemen. The next question, again supplied on the internet by a county delegate, is as sheriff, you can appoint 2 chief deputies to work with you. Who would you appoint to serve in these positions and why?
So start with number 2, number 4, and work our way through. If I had the opportunity to select 2 chief deputies, they would be the best and the most qualified. They would have the respect of not only the sheriff's office, but the respect of the community. They would have been able to demonstrate a working relationship, show honesty and integrity and accountability.
If elected sheriff, I will find chief deputies that will be the best that we can, that will represent the sheriff's office and all of Weber County and all law enforcement. I will talk to a lot of people and we'll find people and the right people for those jobs there. I have made no decision at this point. I have talked to a lot of people who have asked me about it, and I'm not elected sheriff yet, so I don't even need to worry about it till I'm elected. However, it'll be the people we need to make some changes in the sheriff's office.
I have bounced some names around in my head as to who my chief deputies would be. I have not settled on those names at this time, But I'll tell you, I will make sure that my chief deputies are people that have the courage to stand up to me and tell me when I'm doing something stupid. And to help keep me out of trouble. Thank you.
A selection of chief deputy there are several things that need to happen. One is the sheriff needs to have a vision of where we want to take the office, what needs to be accomplished, priorities need to be set. Then you need to select people that will enhance that ability. And I've mentioned it before, people that know more in specific areas than you do. The sheriff is the one that's required to have the vision. The chiefs are the ones to make sure it gets happened. Okay? The difference between a patrol commander and a patrol sergeant is a patrol commander tells you what he wants to get done. A patrol sergeant gets it done. It's the same way with the sheriff. The sheriff sets the direction, the chiefs get it done. That selection is so significant that it can't be made overnight. I have people in mind. I have people that will share my vision, and we will do the best for Weber County.
As far as selection of the chief deputies, they're gonna be in the sheriff's office. I mean, it's pretty much set right behind you. You gotta take everything they said in consideration. I haven't made any decision what I'm gonna do with that. But at the same time, those people are gonna be probably more important than the sheriff himself, because they're the ones that you're gonna have to trust to get that job done. Because when you send them out there, a lot of times the sheriff ain't there, they gotta act in his stead. They gotta know what he wants. And if they can't do that, then they can't have the job. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question, again submitted by a county delegate on the internet, and we'll start with Matt, number 3. Have you considered Weber County law enforcement becoming a unified or metro style of law enforcement? What is your opinion of a unified agency in Weber County?
Absolutely, we should be unified. There's a little problem with it. We have 15 police agencies in Weber, or different cities in Weber County, and there's a lot of agencies that want to have their own autonomy. And as a sheriff, I think that's a good idea. If South Ogden wants their own police department, Harrisville, then that's what they need to do. If people want to be part of the sheriff's office family, we are unified to some degree. We have 7 cities that contract with the sheriff's office and the unincorporated area. But I don't think as the sheriff, I can go tell these other cities that no, your law enforcement needs to be by me. I'm the sheriff and I want to do your law enforcement for you. If those cities want to be part of Weber County and feel like they're going to be part of that family, they're welcome to it. But as far as that goes, the discussions have happened for a long time. It's a good discussion to have, but I've had those discussions. I've seen those discussions. And so right now, I don't see unified coming, and it could be a little more expensive if you did unify. So there's my issues right there with unified.
I have considered a unified police department, similar to the model that Salt Lake County uses. I don't think that model fits exactly in Weber County, but I do think it's a good discussion to have, and particularly when it comes to financing and accountability for the finances of the sheriff's office, or for that what would then be a unified police department, making sure that our mayors and our partners that are part of the unified police department have an opportunity to help manage their budgets more closely. That is an issue we have each year. As we contract, we send out our bills to our cities, and we have these discussions every year about why the bills are what they are. I think we can take better care of that during the year, a month at a time, meeting with our partners. We can do that with contract cities, but I do believe a unified model is helpful, helps us cut down on some of our costs and things, services that we can share. Canine officers, SWAT teams, motors officers, traffic, those types of things, where we can cut some costs and share those amongst our cities. Thank you.
I think having a discussion about a unified police force is healthy, and I think it's a direction we really need to look at. But when you start talking about a unified, what we're talking about is giving up some authority. And so it'll never work until people are willing to share the authority. That's what part of the issue is. But as it relates to being effective, as it relates to being cost effective, one of the things that Kevin mentioned is the sharing of resources. The other thing that we could do as a unified police force is actually have targeted enforcement. There's ways that we could be much more proactive than reactive. Those are just ideas. Like I said, they'll stay in the idea stage until we can get people to give up some of their authority. And the reality is most people, that's the last thing people want to give up. And so until, one of the biggest issues with it is we just recently lost a deputy, 10-year deputy, not to Salt Lake, but to Riverdale for $7 more an hour. We are pillaging each other. So when you start talking about how would a unified system work, you can help manage that pay scale better on a more broader scale. That's one way to look at it. That's something I've thought about. That's not necessarily that it's a thought. But that's why a unified police organization needs to be vetted, it needs to be investigated, but we need to shake hands and be willing to help each other rather than work against each other.
I do believe it's time to be unified. And the bottom line is, it's mostly smaller cities and stuff outside Ogden. Probably Ogden's the only one it's not like that. But outside Ogden, Harrisville, Pleasant View, North Ogden, they're all using each other anyways. You only got 1 or 2 officers on and they back each other. They're almost unified just in that way alone. The sheriff's office is up in Washington Terrace. How many times they're back in South Ogden and South Ogden coming to Washington Terrace and need back? The same thing out west. How many times does Roy roll up? How many times does the sheriff's office help Roy? How many times does Ogden City, when they don't have a dog on, call up the sheriff's office and say, hey, can we borrow your dog? We're all using the same resources. It's just a matter to get.
That's to pick my daughter up at dance.
The only problem you have is the same thing that McGinnis said. Everybody's got their own little kingdoms out there. Nobody wants to give up that authority. And it's about trying to talk to those people and actually make them realize that it's actually a cheaper way to go and a better way to go. Because we're all chasing the same people all over the county. The same idiot or maggot over here that causes a problem in Ogden City does the same thing out east, out west in the county. Same people. They're the same people we're putting in jail. We're just chasing our tail. And until we actually come unified and actually start putting programs together, we're actually targeting these individuals all over the county, we're going to be hurting. Thank you.
About 10 years ago, my brothers and I, we had a development business going. And we met with a private individual that had lots of property. And my father decided to attend with us. And the gentleman that was selling the property was curious of me at my age at that time, that how could I afford it? And he turned to my father and he said, what is your involvement? How are you going to help these young guys with this property acquisition? And my father said, any way I can. This is the mentality. I mean, there's a lot of good ideas about unified. I'm not saying I support one or the other, but what's important here is that the service that the cities want and demand, they should have it. If it means going to their own department or having a unified, or the sheriff's office has got to pony up and do a better stuff, that's what we got to do. It's what the city wants. We should serve them and give them the thing that they want, and the sheriff's office should support them with whatever decision that they make.
You guys are learning an awful lot about me tonight. By the way, the music selection on that alarm was not mine, it was hers, and she's 11 years old, so thank you. Again, I do apologize. Next question, and we'll start with Mr. Burns. Has Weber County encountered the same problems with inmate deaths and suicides as other parts of Utah? What standards should be in place in the corrections environment to address this?
As we're referring to jail deaths and suicides, Weber County did not have a jail death in 2017 and none so far in 2018. So the issues are not as severe as they were in other counties. Weber County has a wonderful medical program already in place for inmates, a great mental health program, officers that are working tirelessly to make sure inmates are safe. We started recording numbers a few years ago at the jail of the number of interventions that took place with inmates. That means an inmate is actively trying to commit suicide, or they're in a medical crisis, and they're saved. Hundreds a year. There are hundreds of interventions each year where the officers are doing very good work, doing the right thing, and keeping people alive. That's what's important. Keeping folks alive. We have great programs. We have great officers doing their work, and they care about their work. They're very caring human beings, and they're proud of themselves when they save somebody's life, when they pull somebody down off of something that they're trying to hurt themselves. So that's where we're at.
As it relates to encountering the same problems, first and foremost, any death is unacceptable. So it all goes to what your value of, or what your matrix is to determine something being important or not. Do I think that it's as significant in Weber County? No. I'm a former jailer. The jail, I've never said a bad thing about it. The jail has a huge, huge part of my heart. I respect the people that work there. I know they come to work to do a good job. They expect to succeed. They experience the same things we experience in patrol as it relates to their pool of people are consistently being taken. So we can't forget that when we talk about, hey, we need to get more deputies, it specifically relates to the jail as well. We're continually draining their pool of peer leaders to come to the road. So what ends up happening is you're in a consistent state of training, of bringing people up. That can be, I'm not saying it is, but it can be dangerous because you don't have those peer leaders. You don't have those salty dogs that have been there and seen that recognize what's happening before it happens. So again, this is another issue that needs to be taken care of. I think the jail does a fantastic job. I'm proud to be associated with the jail. I always have been. But as anything, there's always areas for improvement. I think we need to take a look at it and improve where we can.
Again, I've never worked in a jail, okay? But at the same time, that's why you have individuals like McGinnis and other people that work for you that know more about it, and you learn more about it once you take that job. I don't know how many people of you have actually gone into a job where you had to be a superior to something and didn't really know a lot about the job. I've had that opportunity. That's why you listen to the people that are there. You learn what to do, and you learn the job. But at the same time, you allow them to do their job, and you take care of them doing their job. And that's how you fix it. Or if it ain't fixed, if it ain't broken, you don't fix it. If it is broken, you go and fix it. But a lot of people on the boots on the ground are what's going to let you know if it's broken or not. And you can take care of them.
You know, tonight has spoken several times about core principles. The jail is very important. They have a large responsibility, and a lot of times they're underappreciated for their valuable work that they provide. One of the things that I would love to do as an elected sheriff is, again, it goes back to finding the best and the brightest available. You know, there's a lot of negative perceptions about the private industry. Well, they're working and they're doing some things right. We can look into them and see what's working for them and see if it properly applies to the sheriff's office or the jail. And also those that are, like Aerosmith said, the boots on the ground. There's guys in there that probably have great ideas and they're just afraid or don't know how to share it. But how can we make ourselves more efficient, improve better? improve our services a lot better. For many of us here, even though we don't admit it, but we got family members that are in the jail. They deserve to be treated humanely and given those basic needs that they have a right to have. And to ensure not only the safety from us, those that are abiding by the law, but they need to be protected inside the jail from each one another if there's problems in there. And if elected sheriff, I will do my best to find the best, to make the best changes, to raise the bar, even make it a goal to be better than the other jails that are in the area and be the example.
So I spent a good part of my career in the jail, and I love the jail. I love the staff that's there, and they do a great job. They work very hard in there, and they're kind of like inmates themselves, because you go in and the door closes behind you, and 8, 10, 12 hours later, then you get to go home. It's the only difference is the inmate stays. What I feel like part of our problem has been is that we haven't been transparent enough. We've kept this stuff really secret when people die in the jail, or if they get close to dying, we send them to the hospital, they die within soon, and then some of those deaths aren't reported. I believe in transparency. As a sheriff, if somebody dies in jail within 24 hours or as soon as we notify the family, we're going to make it a public notice. We'll put a press release that somebody passed away in the jail. I think that's going to help more than anything, because this stuff was kept so quiet that nobody really knew about it, and nobody knew it was going on. But our staff in that jail worked so hard at doing the right things there. And so we'll continue to do that, but we will release as much information as we can, as quick as we can, because the public wants to know and they need that transparency.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will now start with Mac as number one. This question I'm gonna ask, I selected among the ones here. Seems like it might be kind of a trick question, but let's give these guys a shot, shall we? How do you feel about deputies spending time on things like unlocking cars in a non-emergency situation?
I don't know. How do you feel about having your keys locked in your car and having a cop sitting next to you and not being able to do anything about it? My philosophy in law enforcement is very simple. And those that have worked with me know it. The worst thing that you can tell a citizen is, there's nothing I can do. They have called you because they are experiencing an emergency or what their perception of an emergency. They need help. It might be counseling. It might be just an ear. It might be someone does need to go to jail. But the worst thing that you can do to a citizen who's in a state of panic or requesting help is tell them, nothing I can do for you. Sorry, this is civil. This ain't me. The idea of promoting leadership and developing people is to put them in a position where their communication level rises to what you expect. So someone's willing to listen and to give answers, not to give questions. There's nothing worse than asking a question and receiving a question in return. So how do I feel about it? Well, I've got a couple tools on my belt that I can open that window with. What are you going to give me permission to open that window with? Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I work for Ogden City, been there for 20 years, and we do have tools that should be ours. Probably what we're lacking over there in River County right now. But at the same time, you gotta look at the other side of the coin. Instead of having that law enforcement guy do that, that's why we have volunteers, right? Can we not have volunteers that maybe on call that can come out there and do that? Something maybe not want to look at. But at the same time, remember this: how many small businesses out there got locksmiths? Are you not taking some of the money from them? So that's a discussion they gotta get together with you guys in the sheriff's office and decide if that's something you wanna do. Cause I'm sure that locksmith out there wants to make money too. And that's what he builds his business off of. So before you start going unlocking everybody's door, Think about that.
Well, one of the questions I get a lot of is, how can we stop the bleeding of the high turnover rate for law enforcement? And what can we do to free them up to do things that are more important? And some of the literature I've already passed out and sent out to you, and I've had a lot of discussions at the Meet the Candidate Night, is the VIPS programs, the Volunteers in Police Service. It's a very successful program. There's a Billings, Montana does this, and it's a volunteer program that I think is on steroids. They took 98,000 calls, Billings, Montana Police Department, last year, or 16. 20,000 of those calls were handled by volunteers. I mean, we're talking about minimal costs for service to help the public. As you guys know, the trends over the years in law enforcement is we handle what we frankly call dumb calls. One of my last calls in the last city I worked for is that they wanted the police to respond because the cows were mooing past midnight. And it's true. There's a lot of things that we should not have to deal with. We got tools for that, and they're not when they are the ones on max belt. But anyway, there's a lot of issues out there that, quite candidly, that law enforcement should not be involved in. But we are here to serve and to help wherever we can. There's parking enforcement that can be done by volunteers. There can be, can you get the sign right? Okay, 10 seconds. Anyway, my point is with volunteers, is it's a great program that works and it helps a lot. I was up at Huntsville and I made a serious recommendation that with the Citizen Patrol Group, I'm getting 15 more. And I thought about a Citizens Boat Patrol. Just that image deters crime and it shows a more formidable police presence. And these are great costs that can be reduced to the taxpayers and provide a better service. Thanks.
Obviously, our first responsibility, we've got calls, we've got things going. So I was about 84, 85, I was a new reserve deputy. I was riding with the deputy one night. There was a car with a flat tire. Pulled over, he says, we're gonna take care of these people and we're gonna fix it. We did, we fixed it, we got them on their way. A few weeks later, I was riding with a different deputy. We're driving, I said, well, that car's got a flat tire. First thing he said, they ought to call a tow truck because I'm not in the job of changing tires, that's not my job. I think as a sheriff's employee, our job is to serve and help the public. Yes, if we got priority calls going on, we can't come and unlock your door. But if we don't, we will come and help you get inside your vehicles. And we will help with a flat tire if we see it. I do not want our deputies driving down the street with blinders and not seeing what's going on around them. It's important that we serve the public. We work for you. And we will help you all we can. It might take us a minute or two, but we will help you.
Over the years, I supervised a group of people. One of the instructions I would give them as we're deciding if we could help a group or not. Ask, is it within policy? Is it legal? And does it cost anything? And if you can answer those questions and correctly, then go ahead and perform whatever task it is you're being asked to perform. We get asked to perform a lot of things that are deemed not real police work. But it's real police work because we're serving people, we're helping when people call us in their time of need, whatever that time of need is, and however serious it is. I've changed tires on the side of the road in a snowstorm. I'm not real good at unlocking cars. That's what I'd call Eric Jones for that. Because that man can open a car. All right? So you have to know what you're good at and what you can do, but I'm certainly willing to help and believe that we should be serving the public with whatever their need is, as long as it fits in with that category. Is it within policy? Is it legal? And within budget? And if we have to adjust something, there we will. But that's talk about it. Thanks.
Well, we do lose quite a few deputies apparently to other counties. There's no chance us volunteers will be recruited by any other county. Okay. Thanks for bearing with us. We're going to do the next question now. And we will then, we're going back to, yes. Okay, this question, I don't think I understand the definition of a word they're using in here, so if you guys could put definition to it in your response, that would be helpful. And this is what I mean. Do you believe that step pay, and that's the point I don't understand, contributes to the inability to stop turnover of personnel? And how would you resolve issues with step pay?
All right, let's talk about step pay. Obviously, it has a lot of, we have a step pay program, okay? Basically where you're at, how many years you're on, that's your step you're gonna make, how much money you're gonna get, okay? I wouldn't do away with step pay. Because if you're an 8-year officer, you get paid as an 8-year officer. If you're a 2-year officer, you get paid as a 2-year officer. A lot of times when we're recruiting from the outside, we want laterals to come over so I don't have to train a brand new guy. It's gonna cost me $50,000, usually about $150,000 a year that first year just to get him on the road. I wanna be able to go and pay him $10,000 to get him on the road, right? So I gotta bring him in at a step. So if he's got 7 years over here, I'm gonna pay him 7 years over here. And then I get that qualified candidate to come in, and it costs a lot less money. But in order to do that, you gotta get the wages where they're supposed to be. So fixing it, no, I would change to a step program, which you don't have right now. Thank you.
The step pay has a lot of advantages and there's some disadvantages to it. The problem with step pays is they're always changing. Every time I sit down in my office with the mayor, we're always talking about pay. Well, what's this city doing, or what's this county doing? It's always changing. The bottom line is you pay your officer or your deputy what they're worth. You pay them and reward them in the way they work, the way they handle their calls. You reward them in all kinds of other ways. Pay is important. One of the analogies that I've always used is there's always a base pay for someone. You know, and if $100,000 a year is what they need to sustain the priorities that their family has, and then you're paying them $90,000, they're gonna be looking for that extra $10,000 to make sure that they sustain that level that they want. But if you can pay them $100,000, what that minimum is, and then give them the autonomy and the purpose and those things that I discussed earlier, those officers are not gonna leave. You need to stay up, and I believe that you should also be the example. You should be a step ahead of everybody else. Once that knowledge is out there, that you pay a little bit more than everybody else, then you really get people wanting to come over and work for you. And you combo it with the things of autonomy and purpose and proper reward, you won't have those turnover problems. We've done it in Perry, and it's working, and it's proven.
So I think a couple of things on this. I like the step pay, but it depends on how your step pay graph is. Step can be 1 or 2 cents. It can be more as you put together your step pay and you put together your step program the way it goes. We used to, when I worked for the jail, when I was a new employee, we used to get a merit increase every 6 months. They were trying to fix some of our wages, and they started doing it, and it really was a great thing. Now, when I started, it was $8 an hour, so it was a long time ago. But those little percentages and those little raises they were giving us were very good. Right now, the Weber County has changed, and if there's a commissioner in here, I'm sorry, but I disagree with them. They want to do all merit pay. And so the employees will get a merit pay, they'll get a raise by what they do. It's really hard to do in law enforcement and in government, in my opinion, because you might have one supervisor that likes this person, one supervisor that likes this person, and who's gonna get the increases? And so I think it's better to do across the board increases and require our employees to have certain things that they need to do so they can get those increases. But I do think across the board's better. I do like the step, but it depends on what the step ladder looks like.
I don't believe that step pay is the issue with the county at this point. I think it's stop pay. We've had some plans in place for some increases over the years, and we know we're falling behind. And in the past, the record has been we prepare a budget, And if there's money left over at the end, we'll worry about an increase for employees. I'm told that the new plan is to put the value in the employees, like we've all talked about up here tonight, and building increases in employee benefits, since they are valuable to this employee, to this organization, putting that on the front end of the budgeting process and making sure that it's in there each year so that we don't fall into this hole that we're in with our pay. I like the philosophy of putting it up front and making sure that we're taking care of it instead of paying increases and employees with the leftovers. Thank you.
Step pay is a way to help get rid of the compression issue that we have. Several things come to mind right off the bat. You have to anticipate changes. And like it or not, things rarely get cheaper as it relates to employee salary. You have to anticipate that. That involves planning. That goes back to the budgetary idea that I spoke about earlier, as your priorities reflect your budget. Plan the increases rather than, as Kevin said, rather than dealing with it on the back end. What you need to do to help retain these deputies, here's the secret. Pay needs to be front loaded, period. The first 10 years, that's where the biggest increases need to occur. And the reason being is because in law enforcement, you qualify for retirement after 20 years. That's the thank you get for putting on that vest and strapping on that gun. So the idea is that if you want to retain people, if you want to stay competitive, those steps need to be significant in the first 10 years and taper off in the second 10 years, because once you get them past 10, the reality that if you've created that value and they're getting a competitive wage, they're more than likely going to stay. That's what we need to do. That's my plan. It's not rocket science. But that's what needs to happen. We need to make sure that we're taking care of these young deputies with these young families and give them a reason to stay. It will taper off in the end. The other thing is, quite frankly, sergeants shouldn't make what lieutenants make, corporals shouldn't make what sergeants make, deputies shouldn't make what corporals make. It's not rocket science. It's pretty easy. That's how you build your steps.
Okay, this next question is a personal pet peeve of mine, and so I'm going to take the opportunity to ask the candidates. We built a new jail several years ago. We got a little tickle from the state about building it bigger so that they could give us some prisoners and maybe compensate us for those prisoners. What we found out after we built the jail and housed some of the prisoners is that that arrangement was based on funding. And funding happens every year. And they have not funded their prisoners. And I'm afraid what has funded those prisoners are property taxes. We just experienced a nice big raise in them. We live in a county with some of the highest taxes in Utah. Every year, the state legislature stands up in front of the television and pounds the gavel and says, we've balanced our budget again, like we do every year. And they do it on the backs of the counties. What could you do as sheriff, and I know this is a legislative issue, but what can you assure us in Weber County as tax-paying citizens who are already overtaxed about addressing this issue for compensation for state prisoners? And we will start with, let's just start over right here. You're back up now.
Well, it goes back to being somebody that's going to stand up. That's what we're talking about. When elected sheriff, I'm here to represent you. We talked about it ad nauseum, budgets, we talked about money, we talked about different things. Now we have somebody or a state organization that's filling our jail with inmates that's not paying their bills. Again, not rocket science. Send the inmates back. It seems like now simple answer isn't an easy answer. It's difficult, but the reality is, if I don't pay my electric bill, my lights get turned off. If there's an expectation of the state for us to house state inmates up in Weber County, we have an expectation that we get paid. I'm not doing my job if I'm allowing that to happen and getting an IOU, because IOU doesn't pay anything. it is, like I said, it's a simple concept. It's probably not as easy as it sounds, but the reality is if you don't pay, you don't stay. It's that simple.
Weaver County Jail houses a lot of inmates for a lot of people. Local inmates, state inmates, federal inmates, currently housing inmates for Salt Lake County as part of that Rio Grande project, and collecting money. May not collect every dime that's coming to them, but they are collecting money. And it's important that we're working with all of our partners, state, federal, to make sure that we have inmates in jails where they belong. If we don't house them for even a portion of what they're supposed to pay us, they're gonna be on your street. And so we need to work with our legislators to make sure that we're looking to fund those things that need to be funded, but it's still our responsibility to keep inmates as inmates where they belong. Thank you.
So before I was a county commissioner, I spent a lot of time with the legislature, and we started working on that funding. The problem with the funding is, at the end of this session, as Bill said, they see how much they're gonna fund. So they do some big formula and they say, okay, this year we paid $61 an inmate, this year we can pay $61.82. That's how much money we have, that's all we've got, and that's how they pay the inmates, on the inmates. Mac's got a great idea. I feel the same way as he does. I would love to send them back. If we send them back, we're gonna have $1.5 million less a year coming in. Gotta remember, about 85% is staff. So I mean, we will have to lay off staff. We will have to shut down housing units. The other thing is the federal inmates pay a little better. Our jail's in a unique situation. We cannot house INS inmates unless that something's changed. They come in our jail and we send them down to Utah County, then they become a federal marshal inmate, and then we can house them. Then we're qualified to house them. It's the silliest thing I've ever heard of, but that's what the law, that's what the feds have told us to do on that there. So we need to have them, like Kevin says, we need to keep them in there. Our number one priority is our own inmates. Number one is our own inmates. If we can take the other ones, we will take them to help the cost there. I'm not sure how much it is, but it's probably $3 million or $4 million a year we bring in that jail and housing other inmates and things.
As I said earlier, public safety is the top priority of the sheriff's offices, as well as those that come to the jail. This is an area that I'm not too familiar with, but again, the basic principles apply here. I don't know what the agreements are, I don't know what the contracts are. There's got to be other resources, there's got to be other programs that are out there that we can look at and say, will this fix the problem? I don't want to have a group of inmates come out here and say, okay, you need to house them, and if we don't have room for them or they're not paying their bill, they're simply dropped off and then put back into our community. We have a responsibility to keep the community and the county, the residents of Weaver County safe. And if elected sheriff, I'm going to go in there and we'll find out what the problem is, see where the loopholes are, see what other industries and what's working for somebody else. How are they getting paid, or why are they not getting paid, and what have they done to fix the problem? And my commitment to you is we'll be transparent and we'll hold those accountable that are responsible for those contracts and agreements that we have made with them.
I pretty much believe with McGinnis and over here, with my partner over here, right? You guys go both ways. If they don't pay the bill, you should take the inmate back. At the same time, you just can't throw them out on the street, especially if there is money coming in from the backside, because you can't give that money, because you give up one state inmate, they're not gonna give you any more money paying the other back way. I got it. But at the same time, you gotta hold them accountable. So you give them a certain time. A lot of times these things have been dealt with, they've gone down and talked to the legislator, they've talked to the states, and the state has said, we'll pay this much money. We get that in writing, because a lot of the times what they're saying is when it's available. No, it's not available. You're gonna give me this much money, period. It's just doing those talks with those people, getting those relationships going. So you got that stuff in writing. Instead of going with this hokey stuff and all this politician crap. All right? You just gotta have somebody down there just telling them, hey, this is what it's gonna be. Trust me, they're gonna send them down there because they don't have any space down there where the state is. They gotta send them down to county jails. Sometimes you gotta force their hand before they force yours, right? So you just go in there and take care of the problem.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll have probably just one more question. Looks like we might get out of here before 8 o'clock. Raise your hand if that's good. Okay. Any opposed? Okay, let's see here. We talked a little bit tonight, and the candidates have talked a little bit about staff morale problems. They've related it to pay and budgets. But this is, again, is a delegate question coming on the internet, and I think we ought to address it one more time before we leave tonight. How would you, as the new sheriff of Weber County, deal with staff morale problems as you see them today? And we'll go with you, right? Can you repeat
Dealing with morale issues is obviously a top priority. I said many of the things already tonight, but they're worth repeating. When I got hired up at Perry City, we took a proactive response, and we implemented a plan. The plan was supported by the mayor, the council, and all the residents. And what we did is we said we need to invest in the individual, the officer in this case. We have to prioritize what their needs are. We have to prioritize them, and we have to prioritize their family. And we have to prioritize their purpose. We have to prioritize their appropriate reward. We have to go out and find the best and the brightest. And I am guilty. I'm one of those that are picking off other cities because we found a great formula. And again, it's autonomy and a purpose is what we do. Those officers, we need to find their niche. We need to give them a purpose, a clear direction of what they need to do. And we also need to give them, again, the appropriate money. I know there's a lot of talk about funds. And the last thing that we want to do is say, oh, we need to raise the taxes to do this. But when you look at a budget and you start off with zero-based budgeting and you quantify and you make everything in there accountable, and then you can demonstrate to the citizen, this is what these officers are worth. And as the chief, they have responsibility to clear all the mud out of the way so they can perform their best. And that's what we've done, and that's how I would deal with the morale problem and also the high turnover rate.
I think our biggest thing will be how we set up the sheriff's agency, who our chiefs are going to be, who our administrators are going to be. That, number one, is going to help. Number two, it's a financial thing. We need to pay our people some more money, and I listed earlier how we're going to do some of that. Part of it is we're going to look at doing some bonuses. We're going to look at incentive pay. We're going to look at doing differential, things like that. We also need to go through our budget and find more money in it. I can't just expect to walk in the commission office and say I need X amount of dollars. I was a commissioner. People didn't do that very often. They'd come in with a plan. And they would write it up and say, this is what we want to do, this is where we need your help, and let's make this happen. And we would do that. And I will do that because I am familiar with our budget. I'm very familiar with it. I will take a plan in, and we will start getting our deputies paid better than they are. But money is not going to buy us out of this problem. This problem is going to be a morale issue that we're going to have new leaders in this sheriff's office and people to trickle down as we begin to fix some of these things that we do. I'm confident that I can do that. I will get the right people involved. I will have the sheriff's office involved before we select these new people, and we will make sure that they're the people that they can follow and they can respect.
Morale at the sheriff's office is a moving target. It depends on who you're talking to, on which day, and where the sun is shining on their particular life at that time. So to narrow it down to just a couple of things, pay is important. It would be important to pay our officers at a competitive rate. It would be really important if the officers knew that their leaders were at least making an attempt to fix the problem. It would be nice that they could hear once in a while that someone was trying, or at least considering the issue of the mass exodus of deputies. There's talk about it, but no real plan in place to try to prevent it from happening. I think it's important that we have a plan and we let our officers know we're working on stopping this bleeding instead of just talking about it. Thank you.
Sorry. Leadership doesn't trickle down. If you want to change the morale, the first thing that you have to understand is you, and above all else, you are an example. If you are the leader of that organization, you are the face of that organization, you have to understand most law enforcement professionals are very type A personality. They want to be led. They are seeking leadership. It is very much like a wolf pack. A wolf can be self-sufficient on its own, but it chooses to live in a pack. But something about a pack is they're consistently testing their alpha. They want to know that the top dog is in fact the top dog. If you want to change morale, what you have to do is be a leader. Not talk about it, you have to do it. You have to lead by example and surround yourself with people that have a shared vision that they're going to lead by example. People have to believe that you're going to do what you ask them to do because you are invested in them, not the other way around. For years, we have heard you need to have an attitude of gratitude. Attitude of gratitude has been a one-way street. Period. We need to invest into the deputies as much as we have an expectation of them investing in us. It is that simple. If you want to change the morale, you've got to change your behavior, and you have to lead from the front, not from the back.
I know I've said this many times before, but the bottom line is you gotta find the money, you gotta get them where they're supposed to be at. Right? Use a STEP program, whatever program you wanna use, but the STEP program is probably the best where you're gonna bet. Put like counties, just like how they are, how they're structured, and find out how much they're making. What are they doing? Then you develop your STEP programs off that. So you're making just as much, if not a little bit better. Okay, in each one of those STEP programs, and then bring all those officers up, so you ain't got it compressed. Because right now you got the bottom wage up, everybody at the top's got theirs, but everybody in the middle got screwed. So you need to bring them up where they should be at in that sheriff's office, period. Then you need to invest in them, make sure they know they have value. In the military we had a saying, mission first, soldiers always. What does that mean? You take care of your soldiers, you don't have to worry about the mission because they'll handle it for you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I just got a text. Apparently, we've had some technical glitches with the live streaming of the debate tonight. And I just want to let folks know that it was recorded and it will be posted later on the Weber County Republican Party Facebook page, wcrgop.org. 15 seconds? Who's the sergeant at arms? Okay, we're going to wrap this up. We're going to give each candidate 1 minute to do a closing speech to us. And again, I appreciate everything that you folks do as delegates, and I will remind you the important duties you have. At least one or two of these candidates are going to be selected by you this Saturday to get onto the ballot and become our next sheriff in Weber County. And it's a tremendous opportunity as a delegate. It's a great responsibility, and I appreciate you spending the time to vet these folks. And I think we have an awesome round of candidates. Let's give them a hand. And we'll start in the reverse order that we started. Troy, you're up.
Again, just in case you forgot, my name's Troy Earlsmith. No, I believe in taking care of your people. I believe in taking care of citizens. All right, you do those things and everything else is gonna fall into place. To be a good leader, you need to see what's going on. You gotta trust your people as well. There's many times I've been in law enforcement, including the military as well, where your leaders didn't trust you to do your job. They micromanaged you to death and didn't let you do your job. They held you back a lot of times. How many people have been in that kind of job? So it's very important you put the right people in the right place. I believe I'm that guy. Okay? And I guarantee you, I'll put the right people in the right place as well in the sheriff's office to make sure they still have those values as well. Just remember, it's your people first. Okay? Take care of them, and they'll take care of everything else for you. Thanks.
This has been a great night. I'm so glad that many of you showed up to listen to us. I agree, we do got some great candidates here tonight. I want to make something very clear and very open and very honest. I know that there's a perception of an outsider coming in and cleaning house. I never cleaned house when I went to Perry. What I did by cleaning house is I wanted to find the best in every single employee, and I wanted them to be their best. I wanted them to show me their talents. I expect attitude and accountability, and we will be transparent, legitimately transparent. There's a lot of shining stars in that sheriff's office, and we're gonna make some good changes there, positive changes. I want to be the sheriff's office to be the example of how a law enforcement agency should run. And that's my goal, that's my commitment, and that's my promise. Thanks.
I've been preparing myself, and I'm ready to be your county sheriff. I've prepared myself since I was 22 years old and began working at the sheriff's office. We have a great staff that's there right now. Our staff and in the sheriff's office and the jail and our patrol division are doing amazing amounts of jobs for us. And we need to make sure they get the recognition for it, and that we can let them know that they're appreciated and needed. As the county sheriff, I will make sure that we are fiscally responsible. I will make sure that we keep the laws of the land and that we live them. I will hold our deputies to the highest level of possibility so that they will be respected and loved by the people in this community. I'm Matthew Bell, and I'm prepared to be your next sheriff.
Thank you for coming out. My goal for the Weber County Sheriff's Office is simple: to be the best managed sheriff's office in the state of Utah. So if what we're doing helps us towards that goal, then we're good. And if we're not doing, if what we're doing doesn't help us, then we're going to stop doing that. The best managed sheriff's office in the state of Utah. It's very simple. I've used this philosophy in other assignments, and it works. I do believe in taking care of our people, and our people will take care of our citizens. This is a tough job. Sheriff is a big job. There's 5 of us up here right now, and being sheriff is bigger than any of the 5 of us probably actually realize. There is going to be a learning curve, but I'm prepared to hit that curve. I've spent 28.5 years in law enforcement and many leadership positions, 14 years as a leader in a leadership position at the sheriff's office. Thank you, Kevin Burns, Weber County Sheriff.
Thanks for being here. Like I said in my opening statement, it represents that you care. The 5 men up here, our presence represents we care. I just want to say before you go how important this position is and what your choice is going to do for the next 4 to 8. Because what's going to happen is the changes that are made in that first 4 years will then develop those future leaders will then take over the office further down the road. So this is an important decision. I just want you to know, I've said it many, many times, I believe I'm the right man for the job. The Weber County Sheriff's Office, as I mentioned in my opening, it needs leadership. It needs change. I am the leader that this organization needs, and I will provide that change. I'm David McInnes, and I'm running for Weber County Sheriff.
Thank you, gentlemen. And we are finishing a little early, so if the candidates wouldn't mind hanging around, if the delegates get a little bit more opportunity for one-on-one, we can certainly do that. And before we adjourn, I'd like to again thank everybody for tonight. Thank Linda for her organization, and also the legislative district chairs in Weber County and the effort that they're giving for convention, all the precinct chairs and their delegates as well. And I'd like to leave us all with a tender quote from one of my favorite founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. And Thomas Jefferson said, "Love your neighbor as yourself, and your country more than yourself." So thank you, everybody. Good night.